day, everyone. So welcome to another health and safety topic. So this is Engineer Vic John Potot, your health and safety advisor. So today we will be covering another health and safety topic that have been requested to us by one of our viewers. I hope that at the end of the video you will learn and be refreshed on this subject that we will cover today. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the discussion. So our topic for today is hot work safety. Hot work safety is actually one of the interesting topic when it comes to health and safety, because the effect of or the risk associated with hot work activities can have a real significant impact, not just to the company but also to the workers and at the same time to the community. So let's start. Let's define what is hot work. So by definition, it is any process, okay, in your work area that involves welding, involves soldering, bracing, okay, cutting, grinding, drilling, burning, or melting of any substances that is capable of creating a spark or flame of sufficient temperature, okay, that would ignite flammable vapors and or combustible materials that is present in your working area. So in short, any activity that generates heat and has the potential to ignite flammable vapors or combustible materials is considered to be a hot work. Okay? So since we are discussing about hot work, let's go to the definition of NFPA. Okay? So National Fire Protection Association. NFPA defined hot work as any activities, okay, that includes flame producing activities, that includes spark producing activities, and of course heat production. It can either be through conduction, radiation, or convection. So this is the definition of NFPA. So when we talk about NFPA, in this discussion, we are referring to NFPA 51B, which refers to fire prevention during welding, cutting, and other hot work activities. So this is basically the main focus of our discussion. So let's start our discussion by identifying what are the common sources of ignition during hot work. Of course, the first common source of ignition, number one, is open flames. Okay, a naked flame, wherein it can be from a lighter, from a torch that you lighted on. Another source of ignition can be from electrical, can be from friction or impact sparks from tools. Okay, that can be another source of ignition. Hot surfaces is one. Hot bearings for mechanical machineries, that can also be a source of ignition. Welding or cutting torches. And of course, heated gases, coils, or resistors. So now, let's discuss the hot work best practices that the CSB released after they have studied a lot of incidents related to fire and explosions. Okay, so these are the 7 key lessons to prevent worker death during hot work activities and around tanks. So let's look into this one by one. So the first best practice that they have identified based on their investigation is to use alternatives. Okay? Basically, whenever possible, avoid hot work activity and consider alternative methods. So, second best practice that they have identified based on their investigations is to analyze the hazard prior to the initiation of hot work. When we talk about it, we need to perform a hazard assessment, okay, that identifies what hazards on the scope of work, okay, what are the work that needs to be covered in that hot work, what are the potential hazards, and once we have identified the potential hazards, we need, of course, to address or provide methods of hazards control in order for that hazard to be either eliminated or minimize its risk while we are doing hot work activities. The third best practice that CSB has identified in their investigation process is monitor the atmosphere. Okay, so now this is not something not common to us health and safety professionals. We always knew that monitoring the atmosphere is very, very important. Okay, so what does it mean? Meaning we need to conduct effective gas monitoring, okay, in the work area where the hot work activities takes place. And in order to do so, in order to have an effective gas monitoring, we need to use gas monitors that are calibrated, okay, that are in good condition, okay, so that we will get the real value or the real presence of atmosphere on the area which we are about to start the work, okay, during, okay, the work activities. So there will be a continuous monitoring of the gas or the atmosphere, and of course after the activities we need also to identify or anticipate possible sources of flammable atmospheres in the work location that we will work on. The fourth best practice that they have identified is to test the area. Okay? This is different from monitor the atmosphere. This one is test the area. Okay? In areas where flammable um, liquids or gases are stored or handled, we need to make sure that it is drained and or purged all equipment and piping before any hot work is conducted. Okay? When we talk about drain, meaning we what? Empty the tank or we empty the pipe. When we say purge, especially for drums or pipes that have been introduced with gas, we need to ventilate it or purge it using either nitrogen or carbon dioxide as the common gases that are used for purging tanks or pipes that has been used for flammable liquids or gases in the system. The next best practice that they have identified is to use written permits. Okay? Or basically, there should be a permit to work in your hot work activities. What does it mean? It means that the activity that you are going to attend to, okay, has been properly assessed by qualified personnel who have been authorized on your written permits. Okay. Of course, when we say authorized and qualified, they are the personnel who are familiar with your system. The moment they issue you a permit, they signify that the system is safe for you to carry out the activity. Okay, that's where uh, that's where the draining part and the purging part takes place before they issue the permit to you. So in short, the use of written permits will ensure that the work activity that is given to the working party is safe for you guys to operate, because this has been assessed by qualified, competent, and people who knows the system that you are going to work on. Next best practice that they have identified is to train thoroughly. So for hot work activities to be effective, for people to be protected against the hazards of hot work, they need to be trained on your hot work policies and procedures. They need to understand what they need to do in the event that they recognize hazards, that they recognize potential risk while they are doing the activity. The last but not the least is supervising contractors. Okay? Based on their accident investigation, there are a number of cases wherein hot work activities have been carried out by contractors. Okay. Now, contractors may sometimes not be familiar with your system, and this is where the danger lies in. So that's why the requirement for supervising contractor is very, very essential in protecting the workers. So provide safety supervision for outside contractors that is conducting hot work. Inform the contractors of the site-specific hazards, and that includes the presence of flammable liquids, presence of flammable materials, or presence of combustible materials, and what are the things that they need to put in place in order to ensure that safety is attained while they are performing hot work activities in your organization. So we'll also try to cover in this video the hot work misconceptions that was written by Guy Colonna way back 2017 in the NFPA journal. I believe that this misconception is a very important information that you guys should also know. Okay, so there are 5 misconceptions. So let's try to look into this one by one. So the first misconception is that hot work is just welding and torch cutting, which obviously is not, right? So when we go back to the definition of hot work, it is any activity that has the potential to generate heat is a hot work. So it's not just limited to welding or torch cutting. Misconception number 2 is that soldering, which is often involved in plumbing related activities, is not a big problem. Well, by record, as per the NFPA or the CSB, they have recorded that 34% of fire-related incidents in the US are caused by these activities. So the misconception being not a big problem is actually a big problem at all. So it is very, very important that we need to look into this kind of activities, soldering and any other plumbing related activities, again, that would generate heat and presence of flammable liquids or combustible materials are there, then we are waiting for a disaster to happen. Third misconception is that the hazard goes away once the hot work operation ceases, which is actually not true. That's why NFPA 51B requires a minimum of 30 minutes supervision or watch to be there after the hot work operation ceases, because this is where the sparks occur, the slugs that have been generated to the hot work activities will fire takes place as per their record or as per their investigations. So it is an NFPA standard that it needs to be monitored for at least a minimum of 30 minutes after the hot work activity ceases. The fourth misconception of hot work is that hot work safety is the responsibility of the person in charge. Or, in fact, I have heard this before. In some of the organizations, they will say that hot work activity is the responsibility of the safety guy of the organization. Well, it's not. Again, quoting NFPA 51B, there are three type of people that should be composed. There are three type of people that composes the safety team for hot work activity. Okay, so the first person is the person in charge, meaning the person who issues the permit or who allows the work to happen. The second person is the person who will carry out the work. That can be the welder, that can be the grinder guy, that can be the cutting guy, and the third person to be part of the team is the fire watcher. Okay, so NFPA requires to have a safety team for any hot work activity, and this safety team must be composed of these three people. Okay, person in charge, the person who's doing the work, and the fire watcher. So the last misconception of hot work is that hot work residue, including the sparks, the slag, the spatter, and heat transfer, are usually transmitted in a limited distance, which is not true. Okay, we know that some of this travels to a lot of distance. So in fact, NFPA 51B again states that there should be a minimum, or you should establish a minimum safe distance of at least 35 feet from your work of operation. That there should be no presence of flammable liquids, flammable gases, and flammable or combustible materials in all directions. Okay, that can be upward, downward, on your sides. So there should be a minimum safe distance of 35 feet in your hot work operation. Okay, now if you are working on a certain level, okay, by record there are events or incidents that they have identified that these slugs or sparks can even travel up to 100 feet away from the main source. So that's the misconception, that it only travels limited distance. So that's it for today, guys. So I hope that you have learned something new today in this hot work discussion. I hope that you will continue to raise questions or continue to request topics of discussion. And I hope to see you again in another video next week. So please don't forget to subscribe. Please don't forget to share and to press the like button below. So thank you for watching and have a good day.